Hey, hey, friends. Oh my gosh. This story is really picking up. Am I right? I loved hearing all about the BFG's dream collections. Those were hilarious to me. Some of them were. Some of them actually remind me of some dreams I might have actually had. Now we're moving on to page 115, The Great Plan. Whew, I'm excited about this. Sophie and the BFG have had it with those nasty brutes, those awful giants. Let's see what this great plan is all about. "We've absolutely got to stop them," Sophie cried. "Put me back in your pocket quick and we'll chase after them and warn everybody in England that they're coming."
"Redunculous and possible," the BFG said. "They is going 2 times as fast as me, and they is finishing their guzzle before we is halfway."
"But we just can't sit here and do nothing," Sophie cried. "How many girls and boys are they going to eat tonight?"
"Many," the BFG said. "The flesh lump-eating giant alone has the most squackling wopsy appetite."
"Will he snatch them out of their beds while they're sleeping?"
"Like peas out of a pottle,"
the BFG said. "Well, I can't bear to think of it," Sophie cried.
"Well, then don't," the BFG said. "For years and years I is sitting here on this very rock every night after night when they is galloping away, and I is feeling so sad for all of the human beings they is going to gobble up. But I has had to get used to it. There is nothing I can do. If I wasn't a titchy little runty giant only 24 feet tall or high, then I would be stopping them. But that is absolutely out of the window."
"Do you always know where they're going?" Sophie asked.
"Always," the BFG said. "Every night they is yelling at me as they go boodling past. The other day they is yelling, 'We is off to Mrs. Sippy.'"
Do you see how they wrote that? Mrs. like Mrs. Meesey, Mrs. Sippy, Mississippi.
"And Miss Sorry,
Missouri.
to guzzle them both."
"Oh, disgusting," Sophie said. "I hate them." She and the big friendly giant sat quietly side by side on the blue rock in the gathering dusk. Sophie had never felt so helpless in her life. After a while, she stood up and cried out, "I can't stand it. Just think of those poor girls and boys who are going to be eaten alive in a few hours' time. We can't just sit here and do nothing. We've got to go after those brutes."
"No," the BFG said.
"We must," Sophie cried. "Why won't you go?" The BFG sighed and shook his head firmly.
"I have told you 5 or 6 times," he said, "and the 3rd will be the last."
I don't think he's very good at counting.
"I have told you 5 or 6 times," he said, "and the 3rd will be the last. I is never showing myself to human beings."
"Why ever not?"
"If I do, they will be putting me in a zoo with all the jiggy-raffs and caterpillars."
"Nonsense," Sophie said.
"And they will be sending you straight back to an orphanage," the BFG went on. "Grown-up human beings is not famous for their kindness. They is all squiffle-rotters and grink-sludgers."
"Well, that simply isn't true," Sophie cried angrily. "Some of them are very kind indeed."
"Who?" the BFG said. "Name one."
"The Queen of England," Sophie said. "You can't call her a squiffle-rotter or a grink-sludger."
"Well," said the BFG.
"Well, you can't call her a squeak-pip or a not-mucher either," Sophie said, getting angrier and angrier.
"Ooh, the flesh lump-eater is longing dearly to guzzle her up," the BFG smiling a little now.
"Who? The Queen?" Sophie cried, aghast. That means shocked and disgusted.
"Yes," the BFG answered. "Flesh Lump-Eater says he is never eating a queen, and he thinks perhaps she has an especially scrumdiddlyumptious flavor."
How dare he? Sophie cried.
But the flesh lump eater says there is too many soldiers around her palace, and he dursn't try it.
Well, he better not, Sophie said.
He is also saying that he would very much like to guzzle one of the soldiers in his pretty red suit, but he is worried that those big black furry hats they is wearing, he thinks they might be sticking in his throat.
Well, I hope he chokes, Sophie said.
Flesh lump eater is a very careful giant, the BFG said.
Sophie was silent for a few moments. Then, suddenly, in a voice filled with excitement, she cried out, "Oh, I've got it! By golly, I think I've got it!"
Got what? Cried the BFG.
The answer, cried Sophie. We'll go to the Queen. Oh, it's a terrific idea. If I went and told the Queen about these disgusting man-eating giants, well, I'm sure she would do something about it.
The BFG looked down at her sadly and shook his head. She is never believing you, he said. Never in a month of Mondays.
Oh, I think she would.
Never, cried the BFG said. It is sounding such a wonky, tall story. The Queen will be laughing and saying, "Oh, what awful rub squash." Rubbish.
She would not.
Of course she would, the BFG said. I has told you before that human beings is simply not believing in giants.
Well, then it's up to us to find a way of making her believe in them, Sophie said.
And how is you getting in to see the Queen anyway? The BFG asked.
Hold on a sec, Sophie said. Now, just you hold on a sec, because I have another idea.
Your ideas is full of swoggle, the BFG said.
Not this one, Sophie said. You say that if we tell the Queen that she would never believe us?
I is certain she wouldn't, the BFG said.
But we aren't going to tell her, Sophie said excitedly. We don't have to tell her. We'll make her dream it.
That is an even more froth-bungling suggestion, the BFG said. Dreams is lots of fun, but nobody is believing in dreams either. You is only believing in a dream while you is actually dreaming it. But as soon as you was waking up, you was saying, "Whew, oh, thank goodness, that was only a dream."
Well, don't you worry about that part of it, Sophie said. I can fix that.
Never can you fix it, the BFG said.
Oh, I can. I swear I can. But first of all, let me ask you a very important question. Here it is. Can you make a person dream absolutely anything in the world?
Anything you like, the BFG said proudly.
And if I wanted to dream that I was flying in a bathtub with silver wings, you could make me dream it?
I could, the BFG said.
But how? Sophie said. You obviously don't have exactly that dream in your collection.
I do not, the BFG said, but I could soon be mixing it up.
Well, how could you mix it up?
Well, it's a little bit like mixing a cake, the BFG said. If you was putting the right amounts of all the different things into it, you was making the cake come out any way you want. Sugary, spongy, curranty, Christmassy, or grobsquatchy. It's the same with dreams.
Go on, Sophie said.
I have dillions of dreams on my shelves, right or left.
Right, Sophie said.
I has dreams about bathtubs, lots of them. I have dreams about silver wings. I have dreams about flying. So all I has to do is mix those dreams together in the proper way, and I is very quickly making a dream where you is flying in a bathtub with silver wings.
Oh, I see what you mean, Sophie said. But I didn't know you could mix one dream with another.
Dreams like being mixed, the BFG answered. They is getting very lonesome all by themselves in those glassy bottles.
Right, Sophie said. Now then, do you have dreams about the Queen of England?
Lots of them, the BFG said.
And about giants?
Of course, the BFG said.
And about giants eating people?
Swiggles of them, the BFG said.
And about little girls like me?
Oh, those is the commonest of all, the BFG said. I have bottles and bottles of dreams about little girls.
And you could mix them all up just the way I want you to? Sophie asked, getting more and more excited.
Of course, the BFG said. But how is this helping us? I think you are barking up the wrong dog.
Barking up the wrong tree. That means chasing silly dreams. Now hold on, Sophie said. Now listen carefully. I want you to mix a dream which you will blow into the Queen of England's bedroom when she is asleep. And this is how it will go.
Oh, now hang on a mintick. The BFG said. How is I possibly going to get near enough to the Queen of England's bedroom to blow in my dream? You is talking dumb silly.
I'll tell you that later, Sophie said. For the moment, please listen carefully. Here is the dream I want you to mix. Are you paying attention?
Very close, the BFG said.
I want the Queen to dream that 9 disgusting giants, each one about 50 feet tall, are galloping to England in the night. She must dream their names as well. What are their names again?
Flesh lump eater, the BFG said. Man hugger, bone cruncher, child chewer, meat dripper, gizzard gulper, maid masher, blood bottler, and the butcher boy.
Okay, let her dream all those names, Sophie said, and let her dream that they will be creeping into England in the depths of the witching hour and snatching little boys and girls from their beds. Let her dream that they will be reaching into the bedroom window and pulling the little boys and girls out of their beds, and then... Sophie paused. Do they eat them on the spot, or do they carry them away first? She asked.
They is usually just popping them straight into their mouth like popcorn, the BFG said.
Well, put that in the dream, Sophie said. And then the dream must say that when their tummies are full, they will go galloping back to giant country where no one can find them.
Is that all? The BFG said.
Certainly not, Sophie said. You must then explain to the Queen in her dream that there is a big, friendly giant who can tell her where all of those beasts are living, and that she can send her soldiers and her armies to capture them once and for all. Page 122. And now let her dream one last and very important thing. Let her dream that there is a little girl called Sophie sitting on her windowsill who will tell her where the big friendly giant is hiding.
Where is he hiding? Said the BFG.
We'll come to that later, Sophie said. So the Queen dreams her dream, right?
Right, the BFG said.
And then she wakes up. The first thing she thinks of is, oh, what a horrid dream. I'm so glad that it only was a dream. And then she looks up from her pillow, and what does she see?
Ooh, what does she see? The BFG asked.
She sees a little girl called Sophie sitting on her windowsill right there in real life before her very eyes.
How is you going to be sitting on the Queen's windowsill, may I beg? The BFG said.
You are going to put me there, Sophie said. And that's the lovely part about it. If someone dreams that there is a little girl sitting on the windowsill, and then she wakes up to see that the little girl really is sitting there, that is a dream come true, is it not?
Oh, I is beginning to see where you is driving to, the BFG said. If the Queen is knowing that part of her dream is true, then perhaps she is believing that the rest of it is true as well.
That's about it, Sophie said. but I shall have to convince her of that myself.
You said you was wanting the dream to say that there was a big friendly giant who is also going to talk to the queen?
Oh, absolutely, Sophie said. You must. You are the only one who can tell her where to find the other giants.
How was I meeting the queen? Asked the BFG. I is not wanting to be shooted at by the soldiers.
The soldiers are only in the front of the palace, Sophie said. At the back there is a huge garden where there are no soldiers in it at all. There is a very high wall with spikes on it around the garden to stop people from climbing in, but you would simply just walk over that.
How is you knowing all about this queen's palace? The BFG asked.
Last year I was in a different orphanage, Sophie said. It was in London, and we used to go for walks all around there.
Is you helping me to find this palace? The BFG asked. I has never dared to hide and sneaking around London in my life.
Oh, I'll show you the way, Sophie said confidently.
I is frightened of London, the BFG said.
Don't be, Sophie said. It's full of tiny, dark streets, and there are very few people about in the witching hour. The BFG picked Sophie up between one finger and a thumb and placed her gently in the palm of the other hand.
Is the queen's palace very big? He asked.
Huge, Sophie said.
Then how is we finding the right bedroom?
Well, that is up to you, Sophie said. You're supposed to be an expert at that sort of thing.
And you is absolutely sure that the queen will not put me in a zoo with all of the caterpillars?
Of course she won't, Sophie said. You'll be a hero, and you'll never have to eat snozzcumbers again. Sophie saw the BFG's eyes widen. He licked his lips.
You mean it? He said. You really mean it? No more disgust of snozzcumbers?
You couldn't get one there if you wanted to, Sophie said. Humans don't grow them. Well, that did it. The BFG got to his feet.
When is you wanting me to mix this special dream? He asked.
Now, said Sophie, at once.
When is we going to see the queen? He asked.
Tonight, Sophie said, as soon as you've mixed the dream.
Tonight? Cried the BFG cried. Why such a flush-bunkling flurry?
Well, if we can't save tonight's children, we can anyway save tomorrow's, Sophie said. What is more, I am getting famished. I haven't had a thing to eat in 24 hours.
Then we had better get crackling, the BFG said, moving back towards the cave.
Sophie kissed him on the tip of the thumb. I knew you'd do it, she said. Come on, let's hurry. What an amazing plan. Guys, the next chapter is all about mixing the dream. Do you think this is going to go well? Oh, my fingers are crossed. We must save some more of those precious, dear little school chittlers. All right, guys, it's been a pleasure reading this chapter to you. Tune in for the next chapter, the mixing of the dream. Bye, guys.